Why did it
Okay,
go
we're
silent?
live
Okay.
now. We're live. Hey, Joe talks exactly when we went live. You're fired, Joe. That's okay. But we're live now, and this is the final Bosch debate. This is the no holds barred Hell in a Cell Bosch debate to end it all. After this, only Ralph's going to mention Bosch. No one else is ever going to talk about it again.
That's right.
Okay.
Because I
So
have
here-
to, actually.
Yes, because you have to, because it's your occupation. But here are the rules. There's no hitting below the belt, and I wrote these down for you. No hitting below the belt. No talking about family. No saying I've done this for 20 years. No saying I've done this since I was 13 or whatever. We can't use that kind of argument, okay?
Hey, at 13,
Well, then I'm done. I'm done.
air
That was
condition,
all I had.
air conditioning was the last thing on my mind when I was 13.
Yes, that's exactly right. I had a lot of other stuff on my mind.
Yeah.
But the first thing we're going to do is Ralph here is going to define what the Bosch is for everybody. So those of you who have been under some sort of rock or something for a while knows what we're talking about. Ralph?
Well, the Bosch is pretty simple to define. It's just a 24-volt non-communicating inverter outdoor unit. Simple controls. I mean, basically, that's about it.
All right. Well, that's simple enough. Okay. We decided here a second ago, Joe had a great idea where we're going to have an opening statement from each of you. And since you just did your definition, I'm going to let Joe take it first with his opening statement. The floor is yours, Joe.
Okay, well, I was going to start by, I guess, addressing some of just the feedback I guess I've heard in some different podcasts about what I'm trying to accomplish. And so I'm definitely, not coming to this trying to make myself sound super smart or to toot my own horn, so to speak. I'm a very open-minded person. Usually, but what I wanted to do, and I feel like I did accomplish throughout the debates, was just to kind of, I wasn't hearing anyone say any of the negatives about the Bosch. It was all the positives about being an inverter unit, but being simple controls. But I think that now there is some more awareness out there about what its limits are, what it will do, what it won't do. So from that aspect, I think I did achieve my goal, I guess, was just to kind of raise some awareness as far as that stuff goes. I'm definitely not, scared of technology. I think anyone who watches my channel will see that technology doesn't scare me. I like technology. I've, put in a bunch of ream root inverters. I've done a bunch of two-stage units, communicating and not communicating. I like communicating controls typically. So it's not that I'm coming from a place of being scared of this technology. Where I'm coming from is just, technology that doesn't really make sense. And I am just a absolute 100% non-biased person when it comes to Bosch. Ralph has some biases because he's basically working not directly for Bosch, but working for a distributor. So his job is to sell Bosch. And a lot of the people that have put Bosch in who are Bosch supporters, I do believe that also makes them more emotionally invested into the product than someone just kind of on the sidelines. And I will admit, I have not put one in, so I don't have first experience about how it runs, but what I can use is my logic and reasoning to hear how it's described that it works and just start to think through things and come to my own conclusions. And based on that, I came to the conclusion that it is not going to be anywhere as good as a true inverter system that is communicating from the thermostat to not be what Ralph and Brian talked about as a load matching system, which I'll agree Bosch is a load matching system. But my debate is most indoor homes, the load is not varying very much at all. So just, yeah, to address some concerns that I'm not trying to come from a place of being, trying to toot my own horn, or no one can tell me anything. I won't listen. If someone has science to prove that this Bosch works differently than I can understand it to, then I will certainly listen to them. I'll certainly listen to them. I'll also admit that a Bosch may be good for certain uses. And I said that from the beginning, was that if you had maybe an old zone system, okay, that load is going to vary widely based on which zone is calling. So for some uses, it may help, but to compare it to a true communicating system with variable speed blowers, variable speed compressor, thermostat that's controlling it based on the demand in the home is totally just it's not an accurate comparison between those two. And I do think that we've come to a place where people realize that more now. Bosch also chose to market it as such that it does not need anything but a Y signal and a fixed speed blower. So that's why I chose to attack it from that angle. I do understand that, you could do some really advanced controls and you could make that unit modulate a lot. So I do get that part. I understand it, but that's where I was coming from on my side is I do think Bosch missed the ball a little bit with their marketing on that. I think they kind of should have stressed that it will work with that, but I do think they should have put in that we strongly recommend to use multi-speed blowers, to use, you could use a Y1, Y2, a dehum call. You could do some really exotic controls and make the blower stage the compressor. So I do get that side of it for all you guys watching. And that's where I was coming from, was because all I was hearing was that this unit is going to vary its capacity, yet somehow maintain a constant evaporator temperature with a constant blower. And that's just what didn't add up in my mind. How could that be? And this must, not be true. So,
I'm gonna start playing some music, Joe, so you know you're tuned in, just like they do with the Academy Awards
and the regular debates.
I think that's
right,
all I had to say.
So here's the deal, Joe.
Ralph, why don't you go ahead and start?
No,
So-
you're
I'm just
addressing
kidding. Go ahead.
me?
So,
Go ahead, Ralph.
I understand where you're coming from, because I felt exactly the same way as you did when I first heard about Bosch. There's no way this unit could do it. And before I go on, let me say, I was for Bosch before I even went to work for somebody that sold Bosch. And it's not because they sell it, because if we have a product that's a piece of junk, hey, it's a piece of junk. And I'm not biased towards Bosch because we sell it. I think that technology that they have is great technology. And here's why. You address the coil. So here's what I want to tell you about the coil. That unit changes capacity, and it does change capacity according to coil temperature. So if you have a regular single stage system, and as that system runs, that coil gets colder, right? It gets colder, and as it gets colder, the air temperature drops, correct? But with the Bosch, it's maintaining a 47-degree coil temperature, or if you need to, you can switch it to 37. And by doing so, you have longer run times. And by maintaining a 47-degree coil, that compressor has no choice but to drop in capacity, because you can't take something that's 3 tons and maintain a 47-degree coil without lowering its capacity. You just can't do it. So that compressor is changing capacity whether you want to think it does or not. It does. It just has no choice. I mean, I don't. It's going to be tough to tell you, to try to make you understand what the benefits are, unless you've actually experienced them, Joe, because you've got some false notions towards them and how they work.
Is that the close of your opening statement, Ralph?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Now, I asked you guys to think of some questions too. And Ralph, you said you already thought of one you wanted to do. So
I kind of, all right.
So you can go first, and then Joe can ask his of you.
So I kind of touched base on it just then. So if you had a 75-degree house, what do you think your coil temperature would be, Joe?
For a Bosch or for a regular?
No, just for a regular system.
I would expect it to be somewhere between 45 and 40.
All right. And let's say you wanted that house to be 70 degrees. What's going to happen?
Okay.
What's going to happen as you get closer to that 70 degrees inside the house?
In my experience, it'll drop a little bit, but not as much as and now this is for newer, higher SEER systems. It may drop a degree or two, but it's not like it drops the 5 degrees.
Right, but it's going to get to temperature faster at a lower coil temperature, right?
Are we talking about
A conventional system?
I would say that's going to vary on. I mean, I don't know. I'd say maybe a little bit faster. Obviously, the higher the delta is between the coil and the air, the more BTUs is being done, but it's hard. I think with a colder coil, you maybe just do more latent, so it may not necessarily mean that you satisfy quicker. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but your air temperature is still going to drop. I mean, it has no choice. If your coil temperature is colder,
okay,
and the air blowing,
yeah, like okay, yeah. So I agree.
If your air temperature is colder coming out of your coil, that means the air temperature coming out of your supply registers is colder, meaning it's going to satisfy the house faster, right? And if it satisfies the house faster, it's going to not remove as much humidity as what a Bosch is going to do, because it's trying to maintain a 47-degree coil.
Subjective. I don't know if there's any real evidence to say that, because since the Bosch is going to be raising the coil temperature,
it's going to have a longer run time.
Maybe it's the same. Maybe it's the same though.
All right. You know? So here's something else. I talked to a guy that bought one last week actually, and I asked him how his unit was doing. I called him because he actually bought it, and he did about it. This is just a normal homeowner. And he listened, he follows us on YouTube. He listened to our podcast and on the Bosch, and it was about time for him to change his unit. Something was going on with it. He had a 4-ton system. He did about 150 hours of research on this thing. He knows just about as much about this thing as most air conditioning guys do, because of what his interest in it. So anyway, fast forward to now. He had it put in the summertime. It did great. I mean, in the wintertime. It did great in the wintertime. I called him up and asked him, Dennis, how's your Bosch? He said, let me tell you something. If a guy has a chance to put a Bosch in and he doesn't do it, he's a damn fool. His bill has went from, now it's just him and his wife. They're retired. They have a 2-story house. His main floor is a 4-ton. His upstairs is a 2-ton. Last year, he didn't have his upstairs system running at all. Last year, his bill was about $177. This year, $77. And 49% humidity. And his upstairs unit this year is running. I'm sure he's got it on about 80 degrees. I didn't ask him the temperature. So what that system did for him, it lowered his bill more than half. And the whole point to us being in air conditioning business is to create comfort and help somebody with their energy bills. And the system did ramp down. Because I asked him, I said, well, have you noticed it running full speed a lot? He said, no, I walk outside and that thing is just barely humming along. So it does ramp up and down. So what I suggest that you do, Joe, is talk to some of these guys that have put it in. Talk to some of these customers that have actually experienced it. Because I agree with you. In the beginning, I was like, there's no flipping way this unit's ever going to be able to do the job of what a conventional system would do. Just there's no way. But when you can ramp from 10% to 110% and change your capacity along that, I mean, it's a no-brainer.
All right, you have the floor now to ask something of Ralph.
I want to address a little bit about that. You know, that's a subjective statement, though, that you just gave me. That is purely circumstantial.
What?
That this guy.
It's fact, Joe.
It's fact that this stuff happened, but it's not scientific, and I'll explain. We don't know how his old unit was running. We don't know anything about it. So what would be more scientific is to put in properly sized single stage unit and then a new one, and then compare those two together. And the fact that he said it's always ramped down. Well,
meaning
is it always
running is it whenever he goes outside, it's running at a low speed.
So is it always running at that low speed? And how does he use it? You know, is it like most people that he just sets his thermostat and forgets it?
Yeah, he keeps it 75 degrees.
Okay. So that unit found its happy speed
for
that house, and it's going to pretty much live there forever.
Right, exactly. Which
you would agree, right?
Exactly. But here's my thing about Bosch. And I think here's where we're miscommunicating. I think that you think that I think that this thing works just like a communicating system. It doesn't. I know that it doesn't. It's not the same thing. But what the Bosch is a product that allows you or somebody that can't afford a $12,000 system to be able to put the thing in their house, save money on their electric bill, and still maintain great humidity level. Because he's at 49% at 75 degrees. And it's too cold sometimes in the house. His wife walks around in a sweater. And that's fact. There's no, I mean, this guy.
It's not, but we could.
Go ahead.
We could do the same thing with a traditional unit with a contactor and a capacitor. Is what my whole point is we could do that, exactly what he has, with a nice single stage unit that's properly sized.
But you're right. We could, but there's no way in this world a single stage system is ever going to save the amount of money that the Bosch will, because when that unit comes on, if it's 85 degrees outside, it's going to come on and it's going to run 13 amps. I'm just, 11 to 13 amps from the time it starts off to the time it shuts down. The Bosch is not going to do that.
Joe's communicating with whoever's breaking dishes in his kitchen.
Oh, okay. Tell him to be quiet.
Well, that's pretty funny. Here, I'll ask a question. Let me ask a question of you guys so I get something in here. Now, let's take an 18-SEER Bosch system and let's take a 16-SEER single-stage system. Subjectively asking, do you think the cost to run is going to be a lot less for the Bosch, Ralph?
Yes.
Even though they're so close in SEER rating.
Why do I think? Because
yes,
it's still going to run your 16 SEER is still going to run up there. Its amp draw is still going to remain higher than the Bosch is. The only
Why?
time the Bosch is going to be up there. So what's the 16 SEER? What's the amp draw on the 16 SEER?
Let's
Free
just
time.
say, let's just say 8.
8. Okay. So it's running 8 amps
Yep.
from the time it starts off, from the time it starts up to the time it shuts down. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So the Bosch is not going to run, it may run 3 amps. So
No, it won't run 3 amps.
Oh yes, Joe.
No.
Oh yes,
No.
it will too.
Maybe. No,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yes, it will, Joe. There, when it's ramping up and down, it's going to find its happy place, like you said.
Mhm.
And if there is a good chance that it could run 3 amps. Hell, if it runs 7 amps, it's still doing better than that 16 SEER.
All right, let me
Well,
put something back.
let me.
Let me
Can I
interject
say
real
something real quick?
Yeah.
Go ahead. I had something brilliant to say, but that's
Okay.
fine.
Please, I don't want to pass this up.
It's gone.
Okay, if that Bosch unit's happy place is 3 amps, then
Right.
it was way too big. That's all I'll say. It was way too big because it's at like,
But wait a second.
30%. It's at 30% then.
But okay, so I'm just saying that let's say it's 9 o'clock at night, Joe. It's 9 o'clock at night. There's no load in the house. You're going to run a 16 SEER at 9 amps or 8 amps or whatever you said, right?
The load's the same in the house whether it's 9 o'clock or 2 o'clock if it's set
No,
to
it's
74.
not. No,
Yeah.
but the runtime, but you're still, that Bosch is not going to run at 9 o'clock at night the same as what it would at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The amp draw is going to, I mean, you're not going to run if it's cooler at night than it is in the day, your load on that house is not the same. There's no way it's the same, Joe.
Are we talking about 2 different load scenarios? We're talking about evaporator load at that moment. We're talking about a load calculation on a house, because the evaporator load might be the same where the load calculation would be different.
Well, if it's 9 o'clock at night at 75 degrees and 95 at 3 in the afternoon, is the load on the house the same? No.
There's more heat gain on
Yes.
the house, but that in that moment, the evaporator has the same load at that same temperature.
Right, but it's that unit is not going to run the same at 9 o'clock at night as it does at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Your single stage will. It's going to come on and run 8 amps the whole time till it shuts off. The Bosch will not.
I agree they'll run differently. Here's why I interject here, that they'll still run differently at night, even on single stage, because the head pressure is going to be lower. So it's going to be a lower amperage no matter what. Maybe not as low as the Bosch. It'll be a little different still. Drink the water, Ralph. Guzzle, guzzle, hurry.
It's okay to drink water.
Hey.
Marco Rubio did.
I don't know if that means anything there. I think he lost.
No.
Are you going to lose, Ralph?
No, I'm not going to lose. Because I'm telling you, yeah, you're right. It's a 3-ton house all day long. But the load is not the same at night as it is. I mean, that house is a 3-ton load? What, 30% of the year? We size a house for the warmest time of the year, right?
Right.
Okay, but I think don't let this opportunity pass you, because the Bosch, the load in the house on the evaporator is the same. It's 74. It doesn't really matter whether it's,
I agree with that.
Okay, 100 degrees outside or 70 degrees outside. Inside the house is 74. The load on the evaporator is the same. The Bosch's only job is to maintain the evaporator at one temperature.
Right.
So whether it's, it doesn't really matter too much to the Bosch what temperature it is outside. It's still going to drive the compressor to maintain basically the same RPMs. And now I understand that there are some sensors to measure the outdoor temperature, but I don't even think that really matters too much when I'm thinking it through, saying it's still trying to maintain the evaporator at one set temperature, the blower's running at one set speed.
Right.
There's not a whole lot of changes in the compressor RPM on the Bosch from 9 p.m., 12 a.m., 1 o'clock p.m. when it's 105 outside. Now, some extreme circumstances, yeah, it'll probably need to pump it. I'm thinking a little bit more as the head pressure rises, pull some more amps. But I'm just, and yes, it's probably obviously got some sort of, how long does it take it? And I don't know this. How long does it take it when you get that Y call to hit the target evaporator temperature on a Bosch? I mean, is it quick? Is it long? Or
I'm not for sure. I'm not 100% sure.
Mhm.
I can get that answer for you, but that all depends on. That's probably going to depend on indoor load and outdoor load.
Well, yeah, I know that the inverters I put in, they take quite a while to stage up.
Right.
So if the Bosch works anything like them, that may be half of the longer cycles right there, because the compressor's still trying to reach that target RPM, and it's got maybe a 7-minute, step up ramp to meet that. So you're gonna see lower amp draws, but you're also getting less cooling, which is making the system run longer. So if we do see longer run times, but they're slightly longer run times in the summer. But see, I don't know that there's anyone out there doing a scientific test that's got a single stage unit properly sized and then a Bosch unit properly sized to really compare the two. We can't really compare your old beater, what you used to own, to this new Bosch and say it's so much better, because
first of all, Joe, there'll never be a comparison. You cannot ever put a inverter compressor next to a single stage compressor and ever think that it's going to be an equal deal. It's just there's just not, because that compressor is constantly changing speeds, and therefore in a lot of cases doing less work to get the same benefit. So I mean, like I said, my whole deal with the Bosch is, first of all, it's going to save the customer money, and it's going to cool the house just as good and probably better, and maintain a better humidity level.
Okay, I have a question now to ask, probably Ralph. Okay, it goes back to that SEER rating thing I was talking about a few minutes ago. We're talking about the price of the system to run. Now, if you have two things that are the same SEER rating, and you have one that's an inverter and one that's single stage, so some of the Bosch matchups, I'm sure, are lower than 18, right?
Yeah, probably so. I mean, it's tough because they got to, in order to do that, you got to match them. You got to get HRI to match them, and somebody's got to do it.
So let's say there's two 16s then. So if you have a longer runtime for the Bosch and you have this step up cycle where it's like, let's say it steps up to 100% over 5 minutes or something like that, just to put something out there.
It's 1 to 2% per like 7 minutes or something. I forget exactly what it is, but I can look that up and tell you.
That's okay. There's a certain amount of time it takes to get up to 100%. That's the idea I'm trying to get across. So it's going to run longer than that single stage system, but it's going to run at lower amps for a period of time also. So you get 3 amp thing.
Right.
So if you take the whole cycle that it takes to cool the building down, and you separate it out into all the amperages that are actually longer than the runtime, aren't they the same cost?
Aren't they
the same cost?
No.
Well, I know that my Ream inverters actually have a lower EER than like some single stage units. So inverters are not magically more efficient. I think the 3-ton Ream is 17 SEER, but it's only like 10.5 EER.
Well, all I know is this, Joe. is that there has been a lot of field testing out there. And that's basically what you're saying. You're saying that, hey, we need to field test these. And like I said, I gave you a great example of somebody, and he uses the same 10-year-old air handler with the ductwork the same, and lowered his utility bill and brought his
You know,
humidity level down. So I mean, how
yeah,
can
and
you argue with that?
I will not argue with that, but that is a very
It's
subjective thing, and that's almost going back to one of the reasons why I said it may be good for some uses. Like if that guy's unit, someone put a 4-ton unit on a 3-ton duct system, and it's always been
running 3
working,
tons.
running 3 tons anyway, and then you put a 3-ton
So,
Bosch in,
all
and
right.
it actually now it steps down to more like 2.25 tons is actually what this guy needs. And now you're saying it's the greatest, but hey, I could have come in there and put a 2.5-ton single stage unit and had pretty close and still just had a contactor and a capacitor.
So let's ask you another question then. So if the house was sized originally for a 4-ton load, right? And let's say the ductwork was off. And like you said, let's say they had 3 tons of ductwork on there. Now the guy put a 4-ton Bosch in, 4 or 5-ton Bosch. And now his house is, he keeps it 75 degrees because that's as cold as he can stand it, and 49% humidity. But he's really only running three tons of coolant because his ductwork only allows him to have 3 tons of coolant. So would you say that putting a smaller system that works better in the house is as good, if not better, than putting a system that's sized correctly for the house?
I got lost in the
Well,
question.
you started it when you said
Okay, well, I'm
you
trying to.
started it.
Yes. Okay, I'm just trying to understand what you were asking of me. If you were asking me to
Well,
say
take
yes.
your original question. What was your original statement?
Okay, that obviously this house does not need 4 tons. I mean, we can put that out there. Just this house.
But if it
does
was
not need
originally
4
sized
tons.
for 4 tons,
I don't care what. There was an error in the calculation apparently because it's been cooling fine with maybe 3 tons, maybe 2.5 tons its whole life. Probably got really good, latent out of that 4-ton on the 3-ton duct system, but we can say pretty much that there was an error in the calculation that said it needed 4 tons. Would
all
you
right.
agree? If
Well,
the house is cooling with a Bosch that's barely running 30%, would you agree that the house doesn't need 4 tons? Because that's, calculations are great, but the rubber meets the road when it comes to, how the system performs.
yeah, you started it.
I'm gonna take that break
I'm not
right
starting
there.
anything.
No. I'm just reading what.
Yeah, it's the new
What?
hashtag is you started it. I like the
Yeah.
hashtag. It's not really against any of you. I just like the way it sounds. Basically, I'm gonna put a new question in there because a lot of this revolves around the same subject over and over again. So the Bosch, people are pairing it up with older systems, older being like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, R410A systems, hopefully. Do you guys advocate for that sort of thing? Do you think that's a good application for the Bosch? Yes or no? Why don't you start, Joe?
Me personally, I wouldn't unless it was some circumstance, like let's say it was a zone system, and that might be okay for it. But if I'm putting something on an old air handler, maybe it had a new coil that can be either 410A or 22. I think I'd probably still, for me personally, I think I'd still go with just a regular unit. Unless there was some sort of circumstance, like let's say this guy says, I like my house 68 degrees at night, but during the day, and this unit's always had trouble getting 68 degrees at night. It's never really, something like that may start making me think, man, that Bosch might work good for this because it's going to kind of
You see me shaking my
handle
head,
this
right?
wide range of temperature.
You
So,
see me shaking my head,
I've
right?
said that from the beginning. Good. I've said that from the beginning. The Bosch might be good for things like, server rooms or places with widely ranging
Yeah,
temperatures
I don't
indoors
think
or
I don't.
problems systems, freeze ups, stuff like that. But typically, a freeze up or a ducts design problem or any of that stuff can be fixed with a smaller single stage unit the same way as your Bosch's. It's just not, you kind of have to pick one size and stick with it. So I understand why guys that may not have the experience of knowing which size to pick may get the Bosch because it's like one size fits all. So I
It's
do
a
get that.
It's a forgiving system.
It's a forgiving system at that point, but then you're going to pay for it in the long run,
How?
with, just
I
not
gave you.
being able to fix it
I gave you.
as easily or being as, I know you're not going to argue that it's just as reliable as a regular unit because the
Wow.
data's not there. You can't say that yet, It
No,
may or may not be more reliable than a regular unit.
I give you that, but when you have
And it's certainly not something that you could call me on a Sunday afternoon, come fix my unit, and expect me to have anything to fix that unit with.
well, I give you that, but
Okay.
now if it's a 2 ton, if it's a 2 and 3, you may have a bad capacitor on the fan motor until the next generation comes out. Then they're going to ECM motor.
That is your one repair you can do.
That's your
Add
one
refrigerant,
repair.
Change capacitor.
There you go. There you go. Just on the 2 and 3. But now, I mean, look, I gave you a great example of a guy who is saving over half on his electric bill every month.
Well, I could give you some great examples about people that are saving half of their electric bill with my new regular unit. So that's why I'm saying it's subjective.
I find, well, I mean, I really, really, yeah, you're going to save some money, maybe 25%, Joe, I think. But now remember, he didn't change any ductwork. He didn't change any ductwork whatsoever. Didn't change his indoor system. And getting back to what you were saying, asking Zach, do I think it's a great idea? No. If you need to, if you're changing the system, you should change the inside too. But if there's no reason, like this guy is like, well, I don't care. If I can use that indoor coil, I'm going to use that indoor coil. And he did. And it worked. And like I said, it's saving them. And I understand what you're saying, Joe. What if it, the ductwork wasn't right? Because we all know that guys don't put in the right ductwork. We know that they don't size the returns right. So even though it said it was a 4 ton, it could have been 3 tons of return. So basically he had 3 tons, but hey, he's still running a 4 ton system on that 3 ton duct system.
Ralph, very well spoken, Ralph. Good job. In a little while, those of you who are listening, and I'm serious about that, I just had to make sure I got in here in between y'all talking. In a little while, we're going to open up the phone line so you guys can call in. Just stick around if you want to talk. I see a lot of you arguing in the chat about this very same subject. It's like a microcosm of what's happening here on the live stream.
Yeah.
So if you want to voice your opinion to either Ralph or Joe, you'll be able to here in a minute. Having said that, I'm going to ask one more question because y'all were talking about parts and service calls and stuff like that. Do either of you have concerns about the fact that it comes from China? And I know we talked about that already. Now, it looks like High Air and Ameristar. It does. But some of the parts are not High Air and Ameristar, and I realize that. Now, the other parts, are they essentially Ameristar parts? Do you think they are, Ralph?
I think that
coils and stuff like that.
Yeah, actually, probably.
Are there any concerns over that? I mean, I know the Mitsubishi parts and the Midea board, everybody's like, or Midea board, everybody's like, that's fine. But do you have any concerns over the other parts as far as longevity?
No, because I'm just looking at warranties. I mean, everybody talks about how much it's going to cost to repair it, but how long does it take you to change a board out? It's under warranty.
Do we have any cost on that board? Is anyone giving out a cost on that board?
Well, I do know how much it costs, but I'd rather not say.
Well, I'm not going to make you say it. Just wink twice. It's like $1 million.
No, it's not that much. The reason I'm not going to say if this was a totally private group, I would say yes. You know what I mean?
Right.
I would say what it was, but this is not a private group. This is open to the public.
Right.
So
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
not,
yeah. So,
you know.
yeah.
So go ahead and say it. Oh no, you're not. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah. It's not a cheap board, but it's not an expensive board. I'll tell you this much. There's some Train inverters out there that their board may be 3 times as much as what the Bosch board is.
Oh yeah, I've seen some numbers on those from some of our Train friends.
Yeah. So if you know how much a Train board costs, and I just told you, they're about 3 times as much as what the Bosch is, then you can pretty much figure out what the Bosch board is.
Do you
Joe, when
think
you're
that
looking at the
Train-
machine, we
Can
talked at
I
the exact same
comment
time.
on this real quick?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. You
I just
cannot.
want to see.
Go ahead. Damn.
Do you think that Train, Carrier, Ream have more or less or the same R&D dollars into their boards as this Bosch does?
I'm going to say that since Midea is one of the biggest inverter mini split manufacturer out there, that they have more experience than any of the American manufacturers when it comes time for this product.
You think they have more experience building these unitary inverter boards? Let me ask you another question. Why do you think that they flew 3 Chinese people to that job to look at that board? You
Well,
think they did that for one isolated incident?
it was
Tell them what happened, Ralph. Tell them what happened so people know.
No,
yeah, he went well.
People
Basically,
don't know what the story is. They don't know what
but
happened.
now,
to the
wait a
3 Chinese
second.
guys.
Yeah, you brought up a great point, Joe. A great point. All right, so last month, Bosch flew 3 engineers to look at a unit that the board had basically, it smoked, and it smoked pretty good. I put the pictures up on Facebook. And the reason they did that is because they wanted to see firsthand the way the unit was installed, and what else was going on at this particular job. And we gave the guy a new unit, and we brought that unit to our warehouse. They took the board out. They took the whole panel out, actually, put it in a box, and shipped it back to China. And what they did find, because there was a second unit there that wasn't working either. The board was messed up on it. But what they did find was the installer, when Bosch sends their unit in their electric panel, they have a 1/2 inch hole and a 3/4 inch hole. And the 3/4 inch hole is meant for the electric to go into, the line voltage. The 1/2 inch hole is meant for the low voltage. Well, the installer, the electrician, did not have he didn't use 3/4 inch whip. He used a 1/2 inch whip. And instead of using the reducing washers, he just puts his whip in the low voltage hole and let the big 3/4 inch hole open. So an actual spider or insect or something like that got up behind the board and shorted it out. Now, 2 days after that job was done, somebody on Facebook posted a picture of a conventional system where the capacitors had blown up. And that electric panel looked exactly like that Bosch's electric panel. So everything breaks, Joe.
Yeah, but if it's real common to find lizards and stuff in control panels. So my whole point to that, when I heard you telling that story, my mind immediately starts thinking, those guys know something that they're not telling you. They would not fly to America to come look at this board for any other reason than they have had some boards and they have an issue and they want to kind of see if it's the same thing and maybe, think about like how to attack this. So I don't think they're going to fly these people to 1 or 2 isolated incidences in America. They might want you to ship the board back, but they're not going to come unless they know something that they're not telling us.
Well,
And, if one lizard can smoke the whole board like that, I understand the contractor left that hole open, but that's still maybe something to think about. And that's,
I've had mini splits where a lizard crawled across the board, and it's a
yeah,
snake.
it can happen.
Yeah,
it can happen. It can happen
on anything.
It can happen,
so.
but
But
I'm just saying.
the more that I mean, and that was a good thing that they saw that firsthand. And the reason I say that is because now they know that instead of putting a 3/4 inch knockout for the electric, they need to do a 1/2 and 3/4 inch knockout, and they need to put a rubber grommet for the low voltage that they weren't doing. So now that helped improve the next generation.
Cool. Maybe they can use those carrier knockouts that the air handlers have.
Yeah, that don't come apart.
They're just indentions with no real hole.
I mean, the fact of the matter is, Joe, that you're never going to find 100% in everything. I mean, I get my brand new truck. I get my brand new truck every day. It's got less than 30,000 miles on it, but I'm like, man, what happens if this damn thing breaks while I'm driving? And it's not because I don't trust it, but it's just it's mechanical. It does break. That's why you're in business, right? Because things break.
And you have to weigh each job and say, are the pros worth the cons? And for me, the pros of the Bosch do not outweigh the cons enough for me to get gung-ho about them.
Yeah,
but push them like as much as some of the people are. Now, isolated incidences where some, and you know what? I would be upfront with the people and say, this unit is a good solution for you. Now, it is a little bit more exotic. So I do want you guys to understand that going into it, and kind of make people aware of that. And that's probably not great salesmanship, but I do think it's good service to just make people aware of what they're getting, that they are getting a unit that is more is going to be more. And I may not scare them to saying I'm not going to be able to fix this unit on a Sunday, and parts are going to be obsolete in 5 years for it or anything like that, but just to say you are getting a more complex, you have more stuff to break, but for you, the pros outweigh the cons. But if I had a 4-ton single stage unit go out and someone wanted to keep the coil, for a normal person, no, just put a regular single stage unit in there. That's just me though.
Yeah, well, you're in a whole different category, Joe. I don't know what to say. Well, because I mean, you're basically walking away from technology that just hold me out, hear me out. You're walking away from technology that will help, and I don't care how you slice it, Joe. A single stage system is not going to outperform an inverter. It's just not going to do it.
Okay, great segue. Here's the next question for you. You have the Bosch, and Joe had to do some theorizing because he hasn't put a Bosch in. Which existing configuration does it most resemble? Single stage, 2-stage, 5-stage, or full variable? Now, I think I already know Joe's answer. Joe, what do you say?
I can tell you what Joe's answer is. Single stage.
Yeah, yep.
Is it single stage? You don't think it's, you think it's still closest to single stage, not 2-stage, not 5-stage, obviously, then not full variable for sure.
You can't. In the way that it's shipped and marketed, single stage. Now, obviously, I know some people have said, well, I, do some fancy controls and I'll command the blower differently. That puts us into a whole new realm. But, as marketed, with your single stage thermostat and with your single stage blower and your single set point of the coil temp, it's most like a single stage unit.
It's not. It's like comparing. It's like having a kid and saying, "Well, who does this kid remind you of?" There's no. I can't. You can't compare it to a single stage, a 5-stage, a 2-stage, because once you leave the single stage, then you start talking about communicating stuff, and it's not a communicating system. And I don't know if I could compare it to any of the communicating stuff, because I wouldn't compare it to I would put it above a 2-stage, but below a 5-stage.
So maybe like
Above
the
a
Ream
2-stage?
3-stage. There you go, 3-stage.
No, I wouldn't put it.
Nah. Nah.
Well, Joe, you put in Ream.
I do have experience with those, so I can say nah.
No. Okay.
No.
Okay. All right. I'll give you another question.
Definitely not
then.
like a Ream.
Definitely not like a Ream. All right. The Bosch brain is in the outdoor unit. We all agree on that, I'm sure, as opposed to in the thermostat. What are the advantages and disadvantages of this? I'm going to let Joe start on that. What was that?
Sorry.
Is that you, Ralph?
Yeah, that was me sighing.
You get a turn still.
I already know what he's gonna say.
Yeah, so the advantage is going to be easier installation, less complex thermostat wiring. The disadvantages is, it's only going to.
You're giving advantages of the Bosch.
No, he said the advantage and disadvantage of having that unit, all the brains be in the outdoor.
Oh, okay.
So the advantage is simple control wiring. That's really all I mean, what else is there to having it like that? A simple control wiring. That's why they did it. The disadvantage is no link to the actual load inside the house.
Sure, there is, Joe.
None. There is none. No, there's not. It does not. It does not know whether that thermostat Y signal is saying, come on and run for 5 minutes because I just need a half a degree. Or if that Y signal saying, come on and run because it's 89 degrees in here and I'm just coming home from vacation. It doesn't know. The only thing it does is, yeah, it's going to know a little bit because of the evaporator temperature. But,
Sure,
from that,
knows, Joe. It knows by
a little.
like you said.
Yeah, I get that. But, once we've cooled the house down from 89 degrees and now it's just on maintaining that signal, that's when we get into that single stage technology because it's still on or off. It's on or it's off. On or off.
That is not a good argument, Ralph. This is not.
Yeah, it's just degraded to that.
Sure, Joe. Hey, you keep saying that about it doesn't know, but it does know because that coil temperature is telling it a lot more than what you're actually giving it credit for.
Okay, if we had like a range of 0, 100% compressor, like we're talking about the difference of like here and here with the coil temperature swings. So it's like, it's not much. It's what I'm saying, Ralph. It's not going to be much. It's not going to be like, oh, the house is 74 here. Oh, house is hot here. It's not. It's.
I think, Joe,
like if I take a communicating system and I go to the thermostat and I put the thermostat down 3 degrees below, it's instantly going to know what I want.
Here's what, Joe, I think you should give your email address. And I want all these guys that put in
your home address too.
Because it's all subjective. It'd be all subjective stuff, just like you said. Now, if someone says, I have scientific evidence.
Do you think that in the Bosch lab, do you think that they do not have a conventional system and a Bosch set up in the same place doing exactly the same thing?
Okay, well, let's see some of the documentation about.
Hey, you're in Florida.
And hey, isn't there a Hold on. Isn't there a document saying that from Bosch?
Oh yeah,
our unit
the white
is
paper.
not going. Yes. Well, so I didn't get a copy of that for some reason.
I sent it to you.
No. This is the one that they sent that Zach got after we had talked already. And it was an email or something, and it said, and that's when everyone was saying, "Well, Joe won."
I sent that to Joe, to Zach, and I sent it to you. It was the same one.
No.
This is the PowerPoint presentation,
Zach.
I think.
Oh, I have the PowerPoint. Yes.
Okay, so what did it say, Zach? Because I remember that night, and I was like, "Go back to that," and you wouldn't.
I didn't want to go back. It's I gotta find it. So if you have it, Ralph, bring it out.
Oh, it's in my it's on my on my other laptop.
Y'all keep arguing for a minute. I'll see if I
So
can-
anyway, so yeah, in that white paper, because you said it remains at constant capacity, but you forgot to read.
I think that's exactly what it said. It
Okay,
remains at a relative constant capacity.
but you forgot to read what was in parentheses, and that is but
What?
still varying. So it's saying it's a 3-ton unit, but it does vary.
Okay, so I'll admit to that. So what that's meaning is its capacity for Ralph's house may be relatively constant at 28,760 BTUs. Its capacity at Joe's house may be relatively constant at 37,859. Two houses, same unit, different capacities. But in your house, it's not going to be different capacities. Does that make sense?
No,
No?
no.
No. Okay. Do I need to repeat it slower?
I don't know. That's
Okay,
like
I'm
that's
saying
how
if we put a 3-ton Bosch into your house, Ralph,
right.
it may run at a relatively constant capacity of 28,640. Now, if we take the same unit, unbolt it from your house, and bring it to my house, it may run at a relatively constant, 33,487
I don't
BTUs.
think so.
Same unit, two different capacities.
I don't think so.
What
Because
don't you think?
if this compressor modulates anywhere from 10 to 110%, it's not ever going to stay like you just said. It's not going to stay 24,000 BTU.
I was just picking those numbers.
Well, no, I know you were, and I was putting
What
that
I'm
out
saying
there
is,
too.
same compressor at your house, it has to run 37% to achieve the coil temperature. At my house, it may run 43% to maintain the coil temperature. So varying capacities, same unit, but from between the morning, the afternoon, the night, relatively constant capacity in each of our houses singularly. But they can claim that unit has varying capacities on different homes, and that's why I
No, Joe.
compared it to a yes. That's probably why they can say that.
So let me ask you a question, Joe. So
Okay.
when you have a system, just a fully communicating system, you're saying that the thermostat is what tells that outdoor unit to ramp up and down, correct?
Correct.
Now, is there ever a time when that compressor is running at, let's say, 30 hertz?
Maybe. I'm sure there is. Yeah.
Is there a time when it's running at 50 hertz?
Yep.
Is there a time when it's going to run at 100 or it's 85
Maximum?
hertz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
And
it's going to constantly change speeds, correct? Based on what the thermostat is telling it. Right?
yes.
Okay. So what your argument with the Bosch, let's go back to your communicating inverter, that you're saying the thermostat tells that outdoor unit, and that's what's great about that communicating stat, is it's able to tell that compressor, hey, ramp up, ramp down, do this, do that. But I'm telling you that the Bosch is doing exactly the same thing, only it doesn't need that controller on the wall to be able to dictate to it when to ramp up and down, because it's using the coil temperature and the outdoor temperature. And I get, and I know where you're going to go back to. Yeah, but your load's always going to be the same. So once it hits where it needs to be, it's going to stay there. No, it doesn't. It's going to ramp down as needed.
But Ralph, what you're saying goes against like all known.
That's because the Bosch is not.
No, it doesn't. It's not magic. It doesn't do something that no one can understand. There's no way. There's an answer here, and it's, there is a scientific answer, and I
So
think that the Bosch PowerPoint will
does
put it
the
into perspective.
so on a mini split,
It
it's
says it.
on let's a mini split ramps up and down, right?
Yeah.
And it's doing it by what?
Sensors in the
On
air
the
handler.
coil?
Well,
On the
no.
coil?
Do they have return air sensors?
Well, yeah.
Okay. Do they have a thermostat that tells it what the set point is?
It's in the board, but
Yeah. Okay. So
it's in the board.
does
But
a mini split work differently if you say if the return temp is 74.5 and the thermostat is set for 74, does that go into the logic on a mini split?
yeah.
Okay. Does the Bosch have that? No.
Well, no, it doesn't need it.
It does. Well, it doesn't need it.
It doesn't need it, Joe.
Obviously, it doesn't need it.
Just
But
say.
don't compare it to a mini split then.
Well, I'm going to have to.
Okay, this has been fun, guys. Do you want to see the PowerPoint? Because I have it
Yes,
right
we
here.
do.
I'm going to share the screen that I think is Joe is talking about, and I'll have Joe run through it, and then we'll just take it from there for a minute. I'm sure. Let's see. All right, there we are. There's the Bosch PowerPoint. Is that what you wanted to see, Joe? Everybody soak it in. Soak it in.
I'm trying to read it.
Soak it up, Joe.
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're referring to is it says there are two variables that affect the capacity of the unit during cooling: outdoor ambient and indoor wet bulb. Indoor dry bulb also affects the capacity, but this value is relatively stable between 70 and 75, as the indoor sensible load remains pretty constant with a changing latent load. In the cooling mode, as the outdoor ambient and indoor wet bulb become lower, the compressor will modulate down to provide relatively constant capacity with constant evaporator temperature. All right, guys, go at it. Go ahead.
Well, what do I need to say? I mean, it's in black and white.
Relatively constant capacity.
That's what I've
The
always
definition
said.
of
It's
that.
relatively
Definition, though. What's the
constant
definition?
capacity.
What's
the
Relatively 5% or 20%. That's the question I would.
Exactly. You're not Joe.
Okay,
if you had a pipe, and
if you said relatively constant, it's not that much, because if it was anything other than that, they would have that in the PowerPoint. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you.
Rel-
I just don't know what the actual number is. That's what I would like to know.
Yeah. And that's fine. I don't need to know the exact number, and I've never said it can't vary at all. All I've always said is this exactly. It's a relatively constant capacity.
So let me ask you two questions, Joe. Number one is, what is your actual issue with the Bosch?
It's misleading marketing that we heard when I first started hearing you guys talk about Bosch.
Okay. So let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Will it save the customer any money at all?
Not enough to make it worth it.
Really?
In my opinion.
When you can cut $80 a month.
I think we need to just throw that in the trap. That's subjective, Ralph, because I could have saved him 78. Let's say I could have saved him $75 with a regular unit.
I don't think
it's
so.
a $5 difference between the Bosch and a regular unit. $5. I think that's fairly reasonable.
I don't know if you could get that.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's within a few dollars if we go comparing apples to apples.
Okay, let's take a look at something else real quick. I'm going to share the screen again because you guys were talking about this too. This is two-stage, single-stage versus the Bosch. Now, look at this. Take a look at it for a second and tell me what you think of this. This will go more towards what Ralph was saying.
Yeah.
Soak it up for a second.
Right there.
I could get my guitar.
Yeah.
It's the same PowerPoint that also said what you agreed with. So if it's right there, it must be right here as well, which is what we're going to discuss.
Well. See, here's the marketing department. Putting this PowerPoint together. it's I think we can all agree the Bosch isn't going to work like this. It can't. Yeah, it's true. Variable speed compressor operation reduces peaks and valleys of any conventional single or two-stage system by adjusting to varying conditions, all while maintaining the desired comfort level and using less electricity. That is a true statement. The graph is a true graph, but that doesn't mean the Bosch works like that. Definitely not wired to a traditional air handler with a traditional Y1 or off signal from the thermostat.
Or the Bosch
No
air
way.
handler, what you're saying as well. The Bosch air handler is the same way. So you're saying
If
essentially
it's the same way, I think that if we, put their feet to the fire and said, let us see documents showing a Bosch in the field with a regular thermostat and a fixed speed blower operating like your graph. They couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. This is kind of the marketing stuff that they can get you.
I don't know. I believe they have done it in their lab. And you're in Florida. You can go down to Bosch because they're there too, and they have a big lab down there, and you can go explore it.
Hey, that'd be fun. And I want to just tell everybody out there they can call in anytime now. So that's 910-970-0774. If you want to say one guy's right, one guy's wrong, you just want to ask a question, I would prefer if you're going to ask a question. So you can go ahead and do that now.
And
Can I use the bathroom break?
Brad, the Bosch is not fully communicating. No, it's not. Hurry up, Joe.
Hurry up, Joe. Let's get some callers in here and talk here. Maybe we'll give you a shirt if you call in. Get gutsy. Call in. Let's see what happens. Use the phone number in the chat there. You can call in, of course, only if you're live right now. If you're watching it tomorrow, sorry, you're too late. Call, leave a message tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the complete Bosch system is still the same thing. It's just like an X13 air handler, right?
Yeah, and I'll have to wait for Joe to come back.
So how's it going, man? Let's just have some small talk while he's gone.
Hey, man, it's going great.
I drank my water. Did you drink your water?
Actually, I got just a little bit left.
Oh man, this is nice.
So next week I'm going to City Multi class for 3 days.
Where's that at?
Swanee, right? About an hour.
Swanee. That's not too
Swanee.
far away.
Uh-uh.
You got to go to a different state or nothing. That's good.
Mm-mm.
Come on, we need some callers in here. I like the callers, man. I know there's some Bosch lovers and Bosch haters out there. Call on in. Let's talk about it.
I don't know if you'd call them haters, but
Nah, well, you know what? Maybe that'll provoke them to call or something. I don't know. See the number there.
David there, he's a Bosch lover.
Yeah, he's a Bosch guy. Looks like I see guys on both sides of the aisle here and some neutral guys like old Switzerland. John M., he's Switzerland.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't say nothing about the Bosch.
He's just neutral.
He's just neutral, man. But I'd like to hear it. Hey, we'll give you a free Viper shirt for calling in. Come on.
Oh, he's back.
He's back and ready to go. Let's do it.
Shh.
I can rewind this later. You know that.
I know.
Hey, talking
Joe,
about water bottles.
Joe, I cannot believe that you're so against the Bosch being the type of guy that you are. You love to experiment with stuff. And I did ask the Bosch guys, hey, how come y'all just use a constant torque motor? Why don't you use variable speed? And his answer was, because of cost. And I said, well, what if I hook it up to a 2-stage thermostat and a variable speed air handler? He said, you can. And it would make it work great.
I agree.
So, I mean, you can do all kind of crazy stuff with a Bosch that you can't do with a
100% agree.
And
100%
let's say you
and
have.
If I had one, and if I put one in my house, I'd have all that on it, Ralph.
Yeah,
I'd probably buy like a 3 or 4 stage thermostat that does, makes that unit go all over the map.
And there's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping you.
You're right. But my whole thing was no one was talking about that, and the way that it was coming off as was this unit was going to do all of that magically, even when you just have a regular blower and a regular thermostat, it's still going to do all that. And I'm like, how? And no one's, I didn't hear anyone like kind of just walking through the science of it and saying, but that doesn't make any sense. How can it do any of that when you guys really crippled it? Like, I feel like it's probably a lot of technology in that unit. It's pretty cool and it's cheap and it's of value. But they chose to market it to this low cost leader type of person that's going to put it in with an old air handler and not do anything to make it actually vary, and then tell their customer they just put this, unit that's going to do all this stuff that it's really not going to do.
In their defense, Joe, that was a lot more me than it was them saying that you could match this to an old air handler. I mean, they did touch on it, but I threw that out there a whole lot more than anybody else did. But I will tell you this.
Oh, we got a caller.
Their own air handler is not any better. So
hold on here. We got a caller.
That would have been better for me. I wouldn't have been.
You're on the air with the arguing Bosch Brigade.
Howdy, Zach. Yo, this is John HVAC.
Oh, John.
Oh.
Hey, why aren't you at the Chinese VOC store?
I know.
That's my internet father.
I have to watch this. Yeah,
his son's debating.
I have to say, all I called in to say is Joe won.
Joe
I may have a bias because I am his internet father. So
okay, all right.
Is that like having my mom say,
Here's your sign. Here's your trophy. Joe, you get a trophy
now. Joey, you did great. Joey, you won it for sure.
Here's your pat on the back.
So when's your next Harbor Freight live stream? Is it right after this?
No, not today.
Oh, we thank you for watching, even as prejudiced as you are. We appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Hey, you get a free shirt, man, even though you just blatantly chose Joe for no apparent reason except for he's your relative.
Yep.
No, I clearly made the most sense.
Exactly.
What else is he going to say?
All right. Take care, y'all.
All right,
John.
Bye, Dad.
Bye.
Love you.
Bye, son. Love you too, boy.
Wow.
All right, he's gone. Let someone else call in and ask a question. That was incredibly.
Is someone else on the line?
No. That was just the little tone you hear is him getting off. So we'll see if anyone else comes on.
So if Bosch had their air handler set up to do everything for you, I would have said, okay, Bosch really wanted it to work right. And they did that with their air handler, but they didn't even do it there. So I get what you were saying, Ralph, that was mostly you, but it wasn't all you because they're not any better with their own equipment. So that's like, I would have said, okay, that's pretty cool system. It's a low cost inverter. And I would have said, but you really need to use the air handler to get the full benefits. But if you don't want to, you can get like a little bit of benefits.
It's more than
you want to use it with your old air handler.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to say, this is my opinion, a little bit of benefits. But you should really get the air handler and get all the benefits. But that I can't even say that because you can get their air handler and it's no different. It's a fixed speed blower with a non-communicating Y signal.
I know, Joe, but your argument is based on your opinion. I mean, it just is.
But my opinion is based on understanding of the field and trying to wrap my head around it.
And I get that. But besides just looking at the paper, have you talked to anybody? Have you reached out to any of the guys at Bosch to ask them about their product? Have you reached out to
No.
anybody besides me that has any knowledge of the product? So I mean,
No.
you're not really, you're basing your opinion on
This is just
what you
my
think it
hobby,
is.
you know?
Well, I know, but you're basing your opinion on what you think it should be, and not the fact of what it is. You know what I mean?
But
Because
you
your
know,
opinion is
is my opinion? Is it that far off from how it works? I don't think so. I don't know.
well. Do
You
you
know?
know? I mean, can
If you want to give me a phone number for a Bosch guy who is not a sales guy, not a marketing guy, not even a guy who's
yeah,
like kind of
I can give,
technical assistance, reads off a computer screen. I mean,
no,
I
I
want to
can
talk
give
to the
you.
guy in like in the lab, like testing these units.
I can give you a couple of their numbers actually.
Then I'll talk to him. And if you
Okay.
wanted to bring one of them on live, that would be cool. We could have a discussion there.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know?
I can give you his name is Fred Crick, and he is one of the not the guy that just answers the phone. He's actually one of the. I mean, yeah, he's the one of the technical guys,
Hmm.
but he's a lot more than like a guy that answers the phone.
But here's the thing. I think that I could get him to admit that what I'm saying is true. That the capacity is going to remain relatively constant. I mean, it's right there in their own literature. You
Well,
know?
I will say this, guys. I sent an email out on May the 19th to somebody from Bosch, and I had a couple questions for them. And here's the questions that I asked. Number one, does Bosch make the inverter board in the unit, or does Midea? Asked about issues with the replacement parts. Guys were having trouble getting the Maristar part, so I was asking if there was Bosch part issues, and I asked a couple more things about their upcoming products. I never received an answer, including asking them to come on live. So there was an attempt to have somebody come on live, but it didn't work out.
So Midea makes the board.
Yeah, that was. I pretty much knew that already. I was just going to get them to say
Yeah.
it because there'd been some back and forth about it.
No, they do. But Bosch has some input on what they want in the board, just like the other manufacturers.
Maybe the watch session will say, maybe we should have come on. We could have said this or that.
Yeah, maybe.
That'd be nice. That's what we're trying to do here. Everybody's all quiet
Maybe I'll
now.
get a paycheck.
Maybe you'll get a free Bosch.
Well, like I said, Joe, I will get you Fred's number, and like I said, you really need to talk to a lot of these guys that are actually putting the stuff in, and seeing what they're, because I'm giving you an example of
Well, here's the thing,
one
with me-
house.
With me, the burden of proof is on them, not me. The burden of proof is on them to prove that this unit works differently than a guy with experience can figure out. Right? Like, I don't need to track them down to try to prove something that I really don't,
Care
have
about?
much. I'm unbiased as they come. I don't really like them or dislike them, other than the fact that they're kind of cheap and Chinese. But I can get over that because I own smart probes and I like Harbor Freight just as much as anyone else when they get something good that works pretty good for a good price. So, I don't have anything to gain monetarily from plugging Bosch. Like everyone who says how great they are, well, I'm not going to put in a unit. Like, I'll admit, if someone got on here and started bashing Rheem inverters, I'd say I would probably be a little bit offended because I've put them in. They're pretty good units, and I like them. So, I feel like I'm pretty unbiased in this debate because I
Right.
don't really have anything to gain or anything to lose. I'm just trying to work through the science and logic and get to the place where the truth is, because I think it was muddled. The truth was muddied by that slick advertising, like that graph, and these slick claims that are half truths.
Well, that graph, it shows how the inverter works.
Yeah, and that's a half truth. Just to show a graph and say This is a graph how an inverter works. Now, our units don't work like that. This is just a graph how inverters work.
They never said their unit didn't work like that. You said their unit didn't work like that.
I am saying that because it can't work like that. It can't have that nice. It can't.
Why
It
can't
would need because it would have to have a commanded percentage from some sort of indoor sensor to have that.
It
And
does.
then
It's got the best sensor of all, Joe. It's got the coil.
That is the worst sensor of all. That is the worst. Now, hold on. It could be a beneficial sensor if the blower was linked to the thermostat. That's pretty neat. And if they did that, I'd say they're freaking geniuses. I'd say Bosch is freaking geniuses. They are commanding. The thermostat is commanding the blower, which commands the evaporator, which commands the compressor. That's freaking brilliant.
Wait a second.
That's cool as crap.
Wait a second. Their blower is connected to their thermostat, which the coil is their sensor, and their coil, or their fan is directly connected to that sensor. But I know what you're saying, but it won't ramp down. But it doesn't need
it won't. Yeah, so it's like you guys were so close to having something brilliant, and you failed epically.
Yeah.
Epic fail because they were so close to having something that was brilliant.
Well,
revolutionary.
I tell you what. Here's some pretty good evidence that Bosch is a very good system. All right. When you have contractors that keep putting them in. They keep putting them in.
Contractors keep putting in Goodman and Nordyne. There's contractors that put in Nordyne. You know?
But they keep putting the Bosch in. There's a reason they keep putting the Bosch in. Why would they? If Bosch didn't do what it said that it does, why would these contractors keep putting it in?
What does Bosch not do that they? I mean, it cools the house,
right?
And it matches its capacity to each house differently. True, it does that. You know,
what else,
I'm not saying.
What else does it do?
It's going to heat a little better as a heat pump.
What else does it do?
It cools the house just like any unit does. I mean, so I just don't.
I believe that it not only will cool the house better, but remove the humidity better and save more money.
Guess what? It won't remove the humidity better if they put it at 47.
Why won't it?
That's warmer than a single stage unit's evaporators run typically, because at 72 degrees it's still going to do a 47, and that's going to barely remove any moisture.
Really?
What's the dew point at 72 and 50%? Right around 50, Zach? Something like that?
My chart's not here, Joe. I'm going to say sure.
Thank you, Zach.
I really don't know, but I understand what you're saying.
No,
before we go on the roundabout any farther, because I feel like we've already touched on this a couple 100,000 times.
We're going down the rabbit hole.
Going down the rabbit hole. I'm going to do one question for each of you because we're going to have to wrap this up, because I know Joe has a prior engagement around 6 o'clock anyway. Or his availability ended at 6, so I assume that's meaning you're doing something. And
yeah, 6:30, but we can finish at 6.
All right.
Well, Joseph, we'll take a call. If someone calls in, we'll take a call, but we only got the one so far. So we'll go to a question. I'm going to ask one question from Ralph and one question for Joe. Ralph, they're two separate questions. Why do you think the Bosch inverter outdoor unit costs half as much as a comparable inverter from a different company?
I really don't know. Wait a second. I do know the answer to that. Because you are stuck buying, if you wanted to put a carrier outdoor unit, a carrier inverter or a train inverter, you have to buy their stuff. And because it's communicating, they pretty much got you. So they can charge whatever they want to for it. Well, with the Bosch, you're not stuck with it's just a simple inverter.
Well, okay, let me follow that up then. Why is the air handler so expensive?
I'm not sure. I don't know. That one, it is crazy because you can
But they're
buy.
the same cost.
Yeah,
Just about.
yeah, just about. You can buy a conventional air handler for half of the money. But
Okay.
but in some places like Florida, North Carolina, if you're going to pull a permit on these jobs, you're going to have a matchup. So
Problem solved. Don't get a permit. All right, Joe.
don't get a permit.
Joe, 10 years from now, will the Bosch inverter still be there? Why or why not?
My gut says no. I think it's kind of a flash in the pan thing. Bosch Bosch is a big company, so they could probably keep putting this unit to market even if it was a break even type of a situation where most companies couldn't endure breaking even on a product. But I just don't think it's going to catch on and be successful in our market.
Well,
Do you think it'll be copied?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Has it been copied already?
Yep.
By anyone?
yeah. There's several manufacturers out there.
Who's done it so far?
Well, that isn't
that the same company though? Just
Nope.
a different name?
No, it's a Midea product, but it's
Okay.
it's a totally different company.
Let me bring
And
that
it-
up. Yeah.
And then there's a different
But they're
one.
kind of buying the same unit and then adding their own little touch to it, right?
Right.
Okay, so
They put some
there's
kind
not
of
gonna be.
cell thing on there to where you can communicate with your cell phone.
Here we go. I got it pulled up here. This is sort of just a little demonstration.
Now,
Here we
this
go.
one here, I don't think is going to be around.
Got some great features. Look at that. Auto refrigeration, auto charge assistant. That sounds pretty great.
Yeah, but I
What
don't
is
think
that box thing on it,
that's the cell
Mister?
thing. No, I thought that's
Mister.
you
The
can
mineral depositor.
instead of like the Nest or the Lyric or whatever communicating with you, this is connected to the board and can send you faults via cell
So
phone.
it doesn't need a thermostat wire?
No, it does. It does need a thermostat, but this will send you faults from the board. But you have to have a subscription to a cell service.
That's
to
right.
have it.
So it's going to send alerts to your contractor?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got a little cellular
I will
box.
say that the Bosch unit looks better than that one. I like the fan guard on a Bosch a lot better.
I agree with
that
that. It's more attractive, that's for sure.
Yeah, but that one there won't be around very long.
I think you're probably right about that. What about the Smart Frog? You seen that thing?
Oh, that's that one is going to be a service nightmare.
The generator too.
I know, and natural gas on top of that. Remember the York had that triathlon that you couldn't even work on that thing unless you called them.
Sounds like a mini split worthy device.
Oh yeah, well.
A generator and air conditioner in one?
Yeah,
Yeah, man.
York.
It's only like $6,000 for the outdoor unit. It's cool.
Oh,
That's freaking sweet though, man.
The Smart Frog?
I'll try to find it.
Generator and air conditioner in one? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's got natural gas backup too.
I can find it here.
Natural gas, so if the power goes out.
Yeah.
Wait a second. So is it one of those ammonia systems that uses
No, it's
natural gas, or it's got a compressor?
It's got a generator in it.
Okay, so the generator runs on natural gas, makes electricity to run the compressor.
I think there's some solar involved with that thing too.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah,
So
you have
they
solar.
think it's more efficient to run an engine on natural gas than to use electricity? Or is it only if the power goes out?
I'm not 100% sure.
There it is right there. Looks Yorkish.
Yeah, hey,
Yeah,
cool.
they
Like
use
Infinity.
Yeah. Hey, cool man, dude. The Bosch can be used with a Nest. You just have to take the smart learning part of it.
Okay, so standby generator, that means that's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Look at that. I'll never ever purchase that, but that's neat
No.
looking.
No, look at the solar powered air conditioner.
It's got the solar pergola.
Yeah.
That sounds nice. Look at that. You can sit underneath it.
What's funny is I bet those solar panels like only run the fan motor.
Yeah.
That's how it gets 23 SEER. That's
Yep,
what
it's got-
Lennox was doing.
There you go, right there. There it is. I don't know. I don't know about that thing. I would never buy that ever, but
Nah.
it's interesting. They didn't answer my email either, so I don't like them. That's okay. Well, boys, it's kind of fizzled out now. I think we're all done here.
Yeah.
Eric M is the only one out watching naked. He says that in the chat. Is he the only one watching naked? That is true. Even though I don't have any pants
he's not
on.
live. Please don't.
You can call in, Eric. 910-970-0774.
Just don't join the hangout, please.
Bring your
No.
memes with you. Yes.
From the neck up.
Rob, why don't you answer the Bosch question there? What kind of warranty does Bosch have? We'll wrap this thing up.
All right. So the Bosch has, right out of the box, it has a 90-day labor warranty and a 10-year parts warranty. It does not matter who owned it, who bought it, because unless you're registering it, unless you're ABC contractor, it doesn't have to be registered. So without being registered, it has a 10-year parts warranty. If you're ABC contractor, you add an additional year to everything. So that means you have a 15 months labor warranty and 11-year parts warranty. And when it does get registered, it just gets registered to the address, which this is the cool part. So you can attach this thing to a commercial building and it doesn't matter. You still get 11-year parts.
Okay. Well, there you go. Joe, do you have anything else you want to end on before we cut this thing off?
No. I mean, I can't think of anything we didn't touch on. So,
Go Bosch.
Hey, if you guys love Bosch, then go for it. I don't hate you or
Hey, the same
have
thing.
ill will towards you. I'm not going to personally use it. And I think that by now people understand, its limitations a little better. So I'm
I
done.
don't.
Ralph doesn't. But Ralph,
I don't.
works for the company that sells them. So it's going to be kind of.
No, I would have still, even if I was a contractor still, I'd still be feeling the same way.
Well, there you go, guys. Whether you love Bosch, hate Bosch, love Ralph, hate Ralph, love Joe, hate Joe,
Joe
you
won.
can enjoy this.
Hey, we're still standing on the same side of the line we was when we first started.
Who could have told you that was going to happen? That's right. I told you before we started. That wasn't the point. The point was just have a discussion, have guys hear it and interact.
Joe did knock me out.
Was it entertaining though for the listeners?
I hope so.
Man.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Eric's excited. Well, not completely. As you can tell from the chat, he could be more excited, but he's not. And if you think that Joe won,
If he
comment
was,
on the
that
video.
would be a
Joe
problem.
won. Yeah, good grief. If you think that Ralph won, comment Ralph in the comments.
Who's
If you
this
think that Joe
David guy? Does he work for Bosch, Ralph?
No, but he's put some in.
Okay, so he's another personally invested guy.
You can't
So
say.
I get that. I get that.
You
I
can't
get it.
say-
No, I get it. I get it.
Yes,
He's
he
personally
personally,
invested,
but he's seen what it will do. So,
but he's not really like thinking through it like I am. Like, let's really cut through all the BS and let's
hey,
just
Joe,
compare it
Joe,
to a regular unit.
Joe,
See how much greater it is.
Joe, watch
A little
this.
bit.
Watch this, Joe.
What? What does that mean?
Well, Ralph is bulimic. I'm sorry you had to learn this thing, but he can't be that size naturally. You know what I'm saying? Something had to happen. So Joe says Joe won. Ralph says Ralph won. Like I said, there's a big shocker for you. I'm going to cut this thing off.
We're 50-50.
50-50. There you go. Make some comments after this video is over. Let me know who won. And of course, visit Joe's YouTube channel because he uploads YouTube videos still every now and then. You can see his 5-hour marathon installs that he did stream live. So, or
Hey,
his dad, John, he does the same thing. With
I'm going
other
to.
stuff.
Hey, I'm hoping tomorrow I'll finally get to do the video of the training room because I'm going to be down there tomorrow. So if y'all want to see it,
Yes, make the video. For the love of God, make any kind of video you can.
all right.
Okay. Ralph, why don't you end it in your special way?
My special way.
Yeah, you remember your special
Hey
way.
guys, thanks for joining us. Glad you showed up. Joe had to go to when he went to the bathroom. He was really going and brush the blood off his cheek. But anyway, so with that,
Still there?
yeah, it's still there. So with that, I bid you farewell and adieu. Turn that.